really is great to have you back on Oklahoma Gardening.
Thanks a lot, Sue. I'm really looking forward to it. In fact, I'm really excited about being back on Oklahoma Gardening. You know, I've been off for about 3.5 years now, but I've always had sort of a special place in my heart for this program because it's fun, it's exciting, and it's just a real joy to share gardening news with people who enjoy it.
Oh, it is, yes.
And you know, I'm really impressed too with the facility you have to work with here, because I can remember about 15 years ago, actually, when we started Oklahoma Gardening, we started inside the studio at OETA in Oklahoma City, and then from there progressed to their outdoor garden, and then went on to doing the show later on in my backyard in my garden. But this is a dream that's become a reality. There's a really nice studio here, and I know you always have a lot of interest in people wanting to know where Oklahoma Gardening shot and why you have to do it. And you've done an excellent job here in putting all the things together that make for a really good background and enjoyable place to work.
Well, we've sure had a lot of help putting it all together, a lot of help from companies and also just from the students who work out here. Really take it as a personal task to make it as beautiful as possible for our viewers.
Well, that's great. And you know, Oklahoma Gardening is a very popular program because gardening is a popular topic, and our viewers have been very faithful, and we appreciate that.
Oh, yes.
And I guess, too, that I'm excited about the things that we have planned for Oklahoma Gardening, because we do have a lot of new and exciting things that are going to be coming on within the next few weeks, few months, and years on Oklahoma Gardening.
Well, that's right. And in fact, today we have a lot of things to cover.
You bet we do. And we better go ahead and start covering those instead of sitting here chatting. We might as well start with the blueberries. I think I have some things about blueberries that I'd like to show the folks at home and talk a little bit about the potential of blueberry production here in Oklahoma.
Great. Sounds like a good place to start.
So let's go to the blueberries then.
Okay.
At least I will.
Okay.
I already think that blueberries are one of the more delightful fruits of early summer, and they generally fit well with the other small fruit plantings because they come on right after strawberries, and just as blackberries are also beginning to get ripe, so they really mesh good with a small fruit planting. In fact, if you want to plant a small fruit garden, you can have a series of fruits starting with strawberries and then blueberries and then blackberries and raspberries and then grapes finally, so that you can really have small fruits in the garden throughout the summer and into the fall. And really, blueberries are not all that difficult to grow if you follow a few of the basic steps. For example, they require a fairly acid soil. pH that is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4.9 to 5.2 is usually good. They do require some water. We'll talk a little bit later about trickle irrigation and how important that is for blueberries. And then also, of course, they require some sort of protection, or at least prefer some sort of protection from the wind. And we've got these blueberry plantings hopefully in a situation where they'll do well because they are protected from the south and the west by a tall building here and some trees. We've got them mulched well, as you'll see a little bit later, and also we have a trickle irrigation system on them. Another thing about blueberries is that they also prefer, or I should say require, more than one variety for pollination purposes. And in this planting of blueberries, we have about 3 or 4 varieties. And the thing that you can do on that then, because we have blueberries that are early, late, and mid-season ripening, is you can include blueberries that will ripen over a long period of time and not only get your pollination requirement taken care of, but also get the harvest period extended over even a month or 6 weeks at a time. These first blueberries that we're going to be looking at here is really a variety that I like called Blue Ray. Blue Ray is an early blueberry. It is a fairly large berry, and that's one of the reasons I like it, because when you harvest them, it doesn't take long to get a handful of these. Notice as these blueberries ripen, they don't ripen the entire cluster at once, but rather ripen in sort of spots on the cluster. And the ripe ones just very easily come off, roll off into your hands, and makes them really a delightful fruit to pick and to work with. Now, blueberries are very, very nutritious too. They're real high in vitamin C. They're low in calories, low in cholesterol. They're excellent as a fresh fruit, but they also, of course, are very good in pancakes and in muffins and jellies and all sorts of goodies that we can cook with blueberries. One of the things that I think we want to keep in mind is that you may remember earlier in the season, Sue and Jim Gallup were talking about blueberries at the Oklahoma Gardening Studio, and they were removing the flower blossoms from the first season or two's planting. And that's very, very important because these flowers do have to be removed when the plants are small so we can get a large plant later on to produce such as these. These blueberries have been in production now for about 6 years. We're starting about our 5th or 6th year of harvest now, and we're probably going to get 3 or 4 gallons per plant this year. Let's take a look very quickly, if we can, at our trickle irrigation system, because that is important. Blueberries require a moist, well-drained soil. We have mulched these well. I started out mulching these with pine bark, but now I've just mulched them with good composted grass clippings. And we have a trickle irrigation system put around these that has an emitter about every 12 inches on it. I can just hook this hose up to the trickle irrigation system and water these very easily, giving them, depending on the season of the year, the time of the temperatures and so forth, we may want to water these in the neighborhood of 3 or 4 gallons per plant about every 2 or 3 days. One problem we do have with blueberries, of course, is birds. And there are many ways to take care of birds. One of the ways to take care of birds in the blueberry planting is to be sure that you keep them picked well. Because if you have a lot of ripe blueberries on there, it's going to attract the birds. If you don't, then possibly you're going to have more bird damage. Another way we may look at is netting. We have some netting materials here that will just, that are actually is constructed for predator planting on fruits and other plants. And you can just take this netting that's designed for with a small mesh here, drape it over the blueberry plantings, secure it well toward the bottom, and do a fairly good job of keeping the birds off. So I think that blueberries are an excellent plant for us in the home garden. I would encourage you to try some. I'm sure you'll enjoy them. And if you can't try them in your own garden, then look in your supermarket, because chances are you're going to have Oklahoma-grown blueberries showing up in the supermarket this year, as in the last few years we've had those. So blueberries are a fine crop, but we also have some other small fruits in the garden, and Sue Gray is back at the Oklahoma Gardening Studio right now to give you some information on some of these other small fruits.